This fight that you're seeing on screen right now could be the tip of the iceberg for a catastrophic scandal for the UFC involving sports betting and fight fixing potentially happening in their promotion. Now, this weekend, Yadier Loval beat Isaac Bulgarian by round one submission about 3 or 4 minutes into round one. And while it is weird that a grappler to the caliber of Isaac Bulgarian fought in the way he did and lost that quickly by submission, it isn't damning alone. But there is a lot more to go through, and I'll get into that. But before we do that, I do want to start by taking a look at some moments during this fight. Now, this is 20 seconds into the fight. Yadier Doval throws a low kick, and he sort of slips off balance, and you can see Bulgarian immediately shoots in, gets to the hips, and you can see the position that Yadier Doval ends up in. With one arm, his left arm posted up on the ground, his feet completely swept out from under him. This, for a grappler the level of Isaac Bulgarian, should be an automatic takedown. He should have no problem getting this. However, Delval manages to sprawl and get backed up against the cage. And then Bulgarian, I think that's, 20 seconds later, shoots in another takedown, a much sloppier takedown, as you can see right here. And then he ends up in a sort of north-south position, where from here, Yadier Doval easily gets around to the back with pretty much no resistance. So this already, a minute into the fight, raises a lot of red flags because Isaac Bulgarian is known for his incredible grappling. He has a wrestling background. We saw his fight with Christian Rodriguez where he completely dominated in the grappling. And that's a really good fighter in Christian Rodriguez, someone who's probably better than Yadier Doval. And he schooled him in the grappling and arguably won that fight. So this alone right here is pretty alarming. We'll continue though. So he ends up in this position, and you can see, I want you to look at his left arm right here. Now, what he should be doing with this arm in this moment is getting 2-on-1 wrist control right here and keeping Delval's arm wrapped around this opposite side of his shoulder where he can't escape. And this gives Bulgarian a chance to breathe, to recompose himself, and it keeps him completely out of danger. But instead, what he does with this arm, and I'm not going to play the footage, obviously, because of copyright concerns, but what he does with this arm is he swings behind himself blindly and tries to punch Delval. And obviously, that does not work. So where that ends him is here with Delval on his back. Now, this sequence of Yadier Delval being on Bulgarian's back lasts about 2 minutes. And right here is one of the first times, and it happens, I think, 3 times during this sequence. Isaac Bulgarian breaks the grip of the rear naked choke. He has his hand pried back here. So all this left arm right here, it's not being squeezed. It's just resting under the chin. That's the chance for Bulgarian to get out. That's the first of this chance. And then this comes at a minute 40. You can see the arm's still under the chin, but his right arm is doing nothing to hold it back. Even Bulgarian's arm or his hand is right here. He can pry away at it, but he's still not doing it. That's at a minute 40. Pay attention to the clock at the bottom. 12 seconds later, another instance where the grip isn't there, and Bulgarian's doing nothing to get out of the choke. Here's it from another angle. You can see it's not in. It's just not. And then about 10 seconds after this, when Yadier Delval gets the finish by submission and wins the fight. And Isaac Bulgarian loses, round 1 sub. And here's where the real fishiness comes into play. I have the wrong tab open. My apologies. So, if we go to UFC Vegas 110 and we look at the betting history on this fight, I'll just click this right here. This is Isaac Bulgarian's money line on FanDuel. And mind you, bets were placed on a lot of different apps from a lot of different accounts. So it kind of varies on different websites or on different sports books, but the general line movement follows this pattern right here. So the opening line, it's like around minus 180-ish, but that's not the concern. Right before the fight, you can see the time right here. Now I don't really follow military time. I don't do that, but that's 5:32 if my math is right. That's 5:32. You can see the odds are sitting at minus 240. And then an hour and a half later, it plummets down to minus 146. Now, this minus 240 means if you were to bet $10, you'd get a little bit over 4 back. So that and then even, obviously, if you follow betting, you know that even odds are, you get an even return if the bet hits. So you can see how much of a drastic difference that is in odds. It's nearly 100 point gap right here that it drops in the span of an hour and a half. And this is right before the fight starts. This is right before the fight starts because you can see where the graph ends. That's because that's when the fight had started. Now, this is not the only time this has happened in the UFC as well. I'll bring up this tab here. UFC fight under investigation after suspicious betting detected. Now, this took place on a UFC fight night where Derek Minner fought Shailene Nerdenbeke. And this fight, I'm not going to get screenshots from this one, but you can go watch it. It's free on YouTube. It's easy to find. Just look up their two names. You'll find it pretty quickly. But if you don't want to do that, I'll tell you what happens. About 30 seconds into the fight, Derek Minner throws a body kick, and he goes stumbling backwards. Not Nerdenbeke. He does not the one to go stumbling backwards. Derek Minner himself goes stumbling backwards, and Nerdenbeke gets on him quick. He starts landing some shots. Derek Minner curls up in a ball, takes a few elbows, and the fight stops. It's very abrupt and bizarre, and it doesn't make sense. But the easy explanation for that is that Derek Minner had a leg injury going to that. And that happens. You know, we saw with Lucas Almeida, he went into that fight with a broken hand against Michael Aswell, and he got knocked out in round 1. So stuff like that happens. Fighters fight through injuries that they definitely shouldn't be out there fighting with, and they get finished early because of it. Now, the problem with this lies is because his coach, the now infamous James Krause, was his coach in this fight, and he had a Discord that he was running. And in that Discord, he had told people, bet against Derek Minner, bet on him to lose in round 1 of this fight. He's going into it with a leg injury. And that's how all of this unraveled, is because of this Discord. It spiked a bunch of betting odds it spiked a bunch of bets on Shailene Nerdenbeke getting a round 1 finish, which a fight of that little magnitude, it just doesn't see betting volume like that where all that money is coming in on one specific bet. And the reason for that was because James Krause was sharing that his fighter was going into the fight injured. Now, this is very corrupt, and now James Krause, he is no longer allowed to coach UFC fighters. This was in 2022 when all this happened. Every fighter was told, if you are coached by this guy, you got to find a new coach or else you will not be in the UFC. Brandon Moreno was one of them. There was a handful of really notable fighters. But one of these guys, I'll switch over to this tab right here, was Isaac Dolgarian himself. He was James Krause's student at the time. And yeah, now he cut ties with them, obviously, or else he wouldn't be fighting in the UFC. But it is something to note that he was one of James Krause's fighters. And a lot of shady activity has happened in James Krause's gym and with potential fixed fights. Now, I'll go over to this next clip here. This is a pretty alarming clip. I'll go ahead and let it play, and I won't speak over it. It's about 30 seconds. I'm going to let it run real quick, and I'll talk about it afterwards.
Hey, I said, don't bet on me unless you're paying me some percentage. I'm doing all the work. That's how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like, I work my ass off every day. I'm trying to support a family with this, and I think they should put some type of clause, like 3 or 5% of what you make goes to the fighter. So that's how I think they should do it, because we're the ones putting our lives on the line. We're the ones, sacrificing everything, training all day long, losing a social life, all that type of stuff. So yeah, if you're betting on me, I want some of it. Hey, I said.
You heard that right there. If you're betting on me, I want some of it. Now, this is alarming because after this weekend, it's looking very likely that Isaac Dolgarian was approached to throw this fight in exchange for a large sum of money. And now, I don't say that loosely. I don't say that without any reason to believe it. I say it because this is something that has happened in the UFC before. And I'll show you 2 examples of this. You have Vanessa Demopoulos here. I don't know if I can get the full quote on the screen. I'll have to minimize it there. She says, yeah, people have approached me to throw fights. Also, my integrity could never. We've spent our entire lives learning skills and honoring the sport. Can't believe people compromise their morals like this. So that's 10-fight veteran Vanessa Demopoulos giving that statement, saying that she has been approached to throw fights as well. And here you have an 11-fight veteran, Vince Morales, saying the same thing. All this fight throwing stuff is crazy. I've been approached about doing it, and it's not something I could live with, even though I ended up losing the damn fight anyways. So these are 2 fighters who have had carved out long careers in the UFC that have been approached to sell fights and throw fights on purposely. And yeah, so that's 2 fighters right there. And I'm sure there's a great amount that haven't come forward about this, who've kept to themselves about this issue. Shoot, there's probably even some out there that have done it themselves. They've thrown fights. I'm sure this is an issue that's pretty broad. That goes beyond just this. So now I would assume that it wouldn't happen on such a broad scale where you would see such a massive influx of bets coming in on one person. But I'm sure there's been times where fighters have said to a close friend of theirs or a family member or even someone in their gym, "Hey, I'm going to this fight injured," and that person's thinking, "Okay, let me throw some money on their opponent." So this has probably happened on a much smaller scale, but I'm sure there's been countless fighters like Vince Morales and Vanessa Demopoulos that have been approached to throw fights. So let me open this up real quick. And this is where I think the UFC could be in trouble. I'll let Ariel talk for a bit. But I don't think the UFC is going to come out of this completely unscathed because I want to play for something for you about how the process went down backstage when the UFC was tipped off that, hey, something fishy could be happening. Because they do, and I'll pull up the statement real quick before I say that. They have an integrity partner in betting called IC360 that monitors bets placed on UFC fights. And they were tipped off that something could be off with this fight. There's a lot of money coming in on Yair Laval to win, and also specifically for him to win in round one. So this is how they took care of vetting all that out.
Here's what I know regarding this story, and there's a bigger story at play here. Obviously, UFC was aware of this. They were made aware of it, and my understanding is there were conversations with Bulgarian and his team about this activity and questioning him what is going on. And multiple times he said that, according to my sources, that he was good to go, that there was nothing of this sort happening, and that there was nothing to worry about.
So, according to Bulgarian and his team, there was nothing to worry about. Nothing fishy at all, because I'm sure if there was something fishy, he would have just told them then and there. And honesty is the best policy. It would have brushed over like it was nothing. They would have all just forgotten about it. No, what are they doing? This is like asking a criminal, "Hey, did you just rob that store?" Obviously, they're not going to snitch on themselves. I don't know what this whole vetting process is for the UFC, and it's not a fight of high magnitude. This isn't a fight very high up on the card. It's two unranked bantamweights, one coming off a loss, one in his second fight in the UFC. It's not a fight that if you pull this card because of some suspicious, or pull this fight because of some suspicious activity, that the fans are going to uproar about, especially if they find out that there was something weird going on like this. The UFC, if they're tipped off, if they're going to have a partner that monitors potential, sports rigging like this, if they're going to have a partner that follows these lines and makes sure that nothing's fishy is going on, they're going to have to act on it. They're going to have to act on it. This fight should have been pulled from the card as soon as they were told about this and as soon as that line had such a drastic drop like that. Because now it's clear that this was probably a fixed fight. This is in all likelihood a fixed fight. And I don't know if it was someone in his team maybe, leaking the information to people, or if it was like the Vanessa Demopoulos and Vince Morales had some shady mob bosses come up to them and say, "Hey, throw this fight and we'll give you X amount of dollars." I don't know what the case may be, but it's very clear now that this fight was fixed on the half of Isaac Bulgarian. I'll let him continue talking. He's got more to say. I'll let him go.
Now, I have talked to multiple people who have known Isaac for a long time and who have trained with Isaac and who have heard about training sessions. And I've been told that in the gym, he goes up against some of the best fighters in the world, the Yusuf Zalals of the world, the Corey Sandhagens of the world, like some of the top guys in that area, in the Denver area. And not only does he go toe-to-toe, but sometimes gets the better of them.
So this right here backs up what I was saying too about how elite of a grappler he is. Isaac Bulgarian was incredible. Now he's cut from the UFC. I say was because he's not a UFC fighter anymore, and he never will be again, I'd imagine. But he was a fantastic grappler. He was really good. We saw it in the Christian Rodriguez fight. Out grappled a really, really strong fighter in Christian Rodriguez. And that was, I think, a fight where Christian Rodriguez missed weight as well. So a bigger opponent too than the one he fought on the weekend. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense that he made such amateur errors in the grappling sequences that he had with Delval, and he ended up losing the fight because of that. So that just adds more fuel to the fire about this potential fight fixing going on. And I'll touch on let's go over here to the Aaron Bronstetter quote, and that's what I'll leave it with. This was a statement sent directly to him, so all credit goes to him for this. Like many professional sports organizations, the UFC works with an independent betting integrity service to monitor wagering activities on our events. Our betting integrity partner, IC360, monitors wagers on every UFC event and is conducting a thorough review of the facts surrounding the Bulgarian versus Del Val bout on Saturday, November 1st. Yada, yada, yada. We take all this very seriously, integrity of the sport, all that. You can't say that the integrity of the sport is the most important priority alongside fighter safety if you're letting these fights go through when there is clear suspicious activity going on. And this isn't something that people were just picking up on after the fight. This was something that in the hours leading up to the fight, people were tweeting about it. MMA Guru, I showed one of his tweets earlier. I'll go to his account real quick. Let's go see what he said. He said, where is it? This was during the fight. Where is it? Where is it? My goodness, he tweeted a lot about this event. Just an Apex card, man. Yeah, there you go. The odds went from minus 270 to minus 150 for Bulgarian in the space of half an hour, and crazy money came in on Doval. This is before the fight started. The betting companies are going wild right now. Something must have leaked from Bulgarian's camp. Just a heads up. So people were on this even like long before the fight took place. So if people on Twitter are able to find this, what's this company or what's the UFC doing? Why are they having a company monitor betting activity if they're not going to use it? So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I'm sure there'll be a lot more information coming out in the following days, but it's insane to me, and I don't think Bulgarian's going to be in a lot of trouble. I think he's gonna do time in the pen, and I think the UFC is going to be under heavy scrutiny. We just saw how much how thorough an investigation was done in the NBA because of two coaches and a player getting arrested for illegal gambling and fight, and you know, it's not rigging games because it's a team sport, but like Terry Rozier, he checked out of a game with a phantom injury so that the unders on his bets would hit and he'd get to cash out. So I think the UFC is going to be under a lot of scrutiny. I think they're going to be under the limelight, and I think the FBI is going to be watching them closely. So really tough situation for the sport all around, but it's the situation we're in now, and we'll see how this goes. Thank you so much for watching. That's really all I got for you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.